students, thanks for taking the time to tune in for the extra practice. I appreciate you being here. We're just going to jump right into the first example. I do notice that there's a GCF, so I always want to factor out the GCF first. All three terms are divisible by 3. And if I divide out 3 from each term, let's see, the first term is going to become 2x squared, then we'll have minus x, and then minus 6. Okay. So now let's go ahead and factor this trinomial that's inside of the parentheses. I'm going to set up parentheses here. What times what gives me 2x squared? That's going to be 2x times x. And then last times last has to multiply to give me 6, which could either be 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. Why would I not put the 2 here and the 3 there? Well, because there's no GCF in 2x squared minus x minus 6, there should not be a GCF in one of these parentheses. We've already factored out the GCF, so I shouldn't have to deal with any more GCFs. Okay? You might have done something wrong, but look for mistake if you do end up with a GCF inside of one of your smaller parentheses. So I'm going to put the 3 here and the 2 there. Let's see, the outers would be 4x and the inners would be 3x. Remember, this c value is negative 6, so there should be different signs. So I could either make this a minus 3x and have a positive 4x, or I could make this a minus 4x and have a positive 3x. What's going to give you a negative x in the middle? The negative 4x will actually work. When I add those together, I would get negative x. So my outer times outer should be 2x times negative 2, and my inner times inner should be a positive 3 times x. Okay, so that's what I'm going to put for my answer, either 2x plus 3 and x minus 2, or you could have x minus 2, 2x plus 3. Either one of those should work. Check your work. First times first does give me 2x squared. Last times last does give me negative 6. And look at your outers and inners. The outers give me negative 4x and the inners give me positive 3x. So that does give me negative x. Okay, the next one is 2 variables. I'm going to set up my parentheses. First times first is u squared. So I'm going to put u times u. Last times last should give me 10v squared. So I know that v times v is v squared, but I'm not sure what to do about the 10. We could have 1 and 10, or we could have 2 and 5. Also, just a note, because this is a negative c value, we're going to be using different signs. So let's just keep that in mind. Okay, I want to get to negative 3uv in the middle. So let's try 2 and 5. I'm going to do, since they're different signs, I'm going to make the bigger number negative and then the smaller number positive. Let's see if that works. My outers here would be 2uv, and my inners would be negative 5uv, which does sum up to a negative 3uv. So that looks good. Okay, number 3. We see a plus 16, so I know we're using same signs. I'm guessing we're going to use negative negative, since I see a negative 8y there. So I'm going to set up my parentheses with the negatives. I know that y times y is y squared. And what are some factors that will multiply to give me 16? 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. Those are all options. And I need to get a negative 8y. So I'm guessing I'm going to use the negative 4s. Okay. Let's try that. First times first is y squared. So it checks out. Last times last would be a plus 16. Check your outers and inners. My outers would be negative 4y and my inners would be negative 4y, which would sum to a negative 8y. So all of that looks good. You can either write your answer as y minus 4 times y minus 4, or because it's a perfect square trinomial, you could also express your answer as y minus 4 squared. The next one here, I see that my c value is negative, so I'm thinking different signs. Either plus minus or minus plus. We'll set up our parentheses. First times first has to give me 2x squared. So I'm going to make that 2x times x. Last times last has to give me negative 3. So what are some factors of 3? Really just 1 and 3. Right? Remember, this is a little bit tricky because whatever you put in this spot is going to be multiplied by 2. So if I'm looking for a 5 in the middle, maybe it would be good to take 3 and multiply it by 2 to get 6x. And then I would have the 1 here. Okay, if I want to get to 5x using different signs, I can make this plus 6 and make that minus 1 to get to 5x. So let's see, if that's the case, we'd have 2x times positive 3 to get 6x. And I'd have to do negative 1 times x to get negative 1x. There we go, 2x minus 1 and x plus 3. Check your work. First times first is 2x squared. Last times last would be negative 3. That looks good. And my outers and inners, we've already confirmed that those would add up to 5x. Number 5, because we have a c value that's negative, I know that we're going to use different signs here as well. First times first has to give me 4x squared, so I could either do 4x and x, or I could do 2x and 2x. We have a little bit of flexibility. Last times last has to multiply to give you negative 3. Right? Really the only factors of 3 are 1 and 3. So I could have it maybe look like this, in which case the outers would be 12x and the inners would be 1x. 12x and 1x will not get you to negative 4x. So that didn't work. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, right? It's called guess and check for a reason. Now the outers are 4x and the inners 3x. 4x and 3x, that's not going to get me to negative 4x. So it looks like that first option's out. I'll just put a 1 and a 3 there. Here my outers will be 6x and my inners will be 2x. And I know I'm supposed to be getting different signs. So how can I manipulate 6x and 2x to get to negative 4x? That'd have to be minus 6 and a positive 2 in order to get to negative 4x. So outer times outer, that would have to be 2x times negative 3 to get to negative 6x. And inner times inner, you'd have to have a positive 1 times 2x to get a positive 2x. Okay, that looks good. Check your work. First times first is 4x squared. That looks good. Last times last is negative 3. That looks good. And then we've already confirmed that the outers and inners add up to negative 4x. Okay, let's take a look at this number 6. Always check for GCF first. I do not think all 3 terms are divisible by any common factors. If I look at the end here, I see that we should have different signs just because we have that negative c value. We'll keep that in mind for later. But let's go ahead and jump in with first times first. First times first is 7x squared. We get 7x times x. And then last times last should give me negative 30. Let's think about some factors of 30. We have 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, and 5 and 6 are all options that could get you to 30 when you multiply them. Again, remember, because it's negative 30, they should be different signs. So it would be like negative 1 and positive 30, or it could be positive 1 and negative 30. Okay, but they're going to be different signs for those factors. All right, let's think about it. Honestly, I'm just going to start plugging in numbers. I'm probably not going to use 1 and 30 like this, just because 7 times 30 is going to be a huge number. So if I flip-flop that and do 30 and 1, we would get 7x and 30x. And actually, if I want negative 37, that could work, right? 7x and 30x. But remember, they have to be different signs. So unless I make both of these negative, you're not going to get negative 37x in the middle, right? But if you make both of them negative, do you see how last times last won't be negative 30? So that's actually not going to work, even though that's tempting to do. All right, let's try something else. 2 and 15, 2 and 15. 7 times 15 is going to be a pretty big number, so I'm going to switch that around again. 15 times 2, that would be 14x and 15x. 14 and 15, if I do opposite signs, I would either get x when I sum them together, or I would get negative x when I sum them together. So that's not going to work either. Let's do 3 and 10. Wow, 7 times 10, that's going to be 70. There's no way that's going to work. So let's flip-flop that. I'll put the 10 here and the 3 there. 7 times 3 is going to give me 21. And then 10x is going to be right there. In that case, I don't think that's going to work, because if I make 21 negative, 10 minus 21 is going to be negative 11, not negative 37. Or if I make the 10 negative, then that's going to be positive 11x, not negative 37. So that doesn't look like that works either. Throw that out. So hopefully 5 and 6 works. What's 7 times 6? That's going to be 42x. And then we have 5x as my inners. If I make this negative and I sum that together, I would get negative 37x. So that looks good. So 7x times negative 6 would give me negative 42 for my outers, and positive 5 times x would give me a positive 5x for my inners. There we go, that's my answer. So you can see that one took a little bit more time just because it was the last thing that we tried. Okay, and that's it for the extra practice. Stay tuned if you're interested in the challenge problems.